And the husband's like, she don't do this, she don't do that, and I be working hard, I get no respect. I just be looking at him like, man, it sounds like you're dying. He's like, this is exactly how I feel. I said, that means you doing it right. You wasn't meant to live through this marriage, fam. You came down to an altar. What do you think happens at altars?
Sacrifice. I made a TikTok of me packing my boyfriend's lunch for him before he go to work. And the girls came in my comments and was like, oh, you should be a wife first. You need a ring. I only do this for my husband. Oh, he need to be paying all the bills first.
Husband is demanding a paternity test for his newborn child, or he won't sign the birth certificate. The wife and new mom gave some backstory on Reddit, sharing that she and her husband both worked hard on their college degrees and are now established in good careers. Her husband came into the relationship with a lot of debt, so she moved him into her house, which she owned, and helped him slowly pay things off.
I hate when I bring up a guy I have a crush on, and people immediately start telling me that I should try to use him for his money. Like, do you hear yourselves? This has got to be, and is, definitely a product of the thinly veiled escort game that's being touted as dating advice on the internet these days.
Some house cleaning before we get started. For those who've been rocking with me from day one, I appreciate the support. For those who may be new here, coming in or out the door from me, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, get it cracking in the comments. Every bit of your engagement absolutely helps promote me into the YouTube algorithm. I thank y'all for the support. Now let's get to it. Drop the video. Let's go.
And the husband's like, she don't do this, she don't do that, and I be working hard, I get no respect. I just be looking at him like, man, it sounds like you're dying. He's like, this is exactly how I feel. I said, that means you doing it right. You wasn't meant to live through this marriage, fam. You came down to an altar. What do you think happens at altars?
Sacrifice.
So Ephesians 5 says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loves the church. Yeah. The onus is on the man, and we keep abdicating our responsibility to the woman. We've been doing it since Genesis 3, the woman you gave me. Well, if Adam was really in his position, he would have took the fruit out of her hand and chucked it, and then went straight to God on Eve's behalf to say, I know she should die, take me instead. If that would have played out in Genesis 3 like that, what do you think her response is going to be? She just watched her man take her penalty. Worship. The respect that the man wants is on the other side of his death and his sacrifice.
What does it mean to die practically?
Your ego goes away, pride goes away, you work, and you stop trying to make it seem like it's the biggest sacrifice of all time. You wasn't meant to live through this marriage, fam. You came down to an altar. You didn't slide down into a swimming pool with baby oil.
Help it, tag out.
What Christ did for his bride.
Talk more shit than a little bit.
This is exactly why black men left the black church. You had one of your parishioners come to you and say, I'm not getting respect for what I'm putting into my marriage. And your thing was to turn around and tell him that he's doing something right because he's not getting respect. And he should expect to die in a marriage for an ungrateful woman. What the hell kind of message is that? That is pandering and simping on a level I've never seen before. And this is what I said. This is what I always say. The black church will never hold black women accountable because black women are their currency. So it's always going to be, it's not their fault. It's not anything they're doing. This man literally told a parishioner that if he's not getting respect from his wife, he's doing something right. That's basically what he's saying. And he's saying that men should not expect reciprocity in their own marriage, right? That's basically what he's saying in a nutshell, that you shouldn't expect anything in your marriage. You shouldn't expect respect, reciprocity, because you are the head. But here's the thing, sir. Y'all always like to misquote scripture and misshape scripture. That whole thing you said about Eve, did you forget that Eve ate the apple first? Adam was not around Eve when she ate that apple. Eve was seduced by a serpent. Adam wasn't around to protect her. She ate the apple. She deceived Adam after she ate the apple. She presented him with something through deception. She wasn't being honest. So how can he in turn slap an apple out of her hand when he was being deceived because Eve partaked in knowledge she shouldn't have? So Eve partaked in forbidden knowledge, deceived Adam, and it's Adam's fault for Eve disobeying God's commandments. This is exactly why black men have checked out of the black church. You're nothing more than slick-tongued devils in the church. You pander to black women to simply earn their money. That's all you're doing. You're doing performative religious theater. That's all you're doing. You're performing theater from a religious perception, because nothing you said made sense. And you see that the women are celebrating it because, of course, they want men to sacrifice themselves for their nonsense. Of course, women are going to be on board with a message that says men are supposed to sacrifice themselves for ungrateful, low-down, deceptive, manipulative women, because that's what they embrace, because they're staunchly entrenched in womanism in the black community, and you know it. And this is the message you're pandering to those women because you know they are your currency. Let's go to the next one.
I made a TikTok of me packing my boyfriend's lunch for him before he go to work. And the girls came in my comments and was like, oh, you should be a wife first. You need a ring. I only do this for my husband. Oh, he need to be paying all the bills first. Lunch. We're talking about putting food into a lunchbox. Y'all a fuck. Eat peen. Some of y'all eat a little ass. Spend the night, lay up. Have kids. Have kids. But a lunchbox is where you draw the line because you don't have a ring. What happened to just doing stuff out of love? Like, everything doesn't have to be transactional. Get off social media and touch grass. Thank you.
That's because they see everything through a transactional lens. They're indoctrinated to the point where they think anything domestic is a negative, and anything along the lines of promiscuity, debauchery is empowering. Right? Think about that for a second. If you do domestic stuff for a man in a relationship before you're his wife, it's a negative. But he can do all the husbandly duties for you before he's a husband. But they see any domestic thing a woman does for a man as a negative. But anything that's in the lines of debauchery or degeneracy is an absolute plus, because that's empowering. That's her taking control over her own sexuality. So they only see value in a woman's sexuality, not in the things that are actually tangible that pretty much make the world go round. Women doing for men, men doing for women in a symbiotic relationship, not a parasitic one, but they're actually doing things that benefit one another. See, in their minds, in their indoctrination, anytime a woman does something for a man, it better have some huge benefit attached to it. It can't just be because she loves that man, she respects that man, and she wants that man to go about his day in a caring, nurturing way. No. That's a negative. It has to be some transactional benefit that supersedes the domestic labor that she perceives that she's doing. And I agree with this young lady. Why does everything have to be transactional if you actually care about the person? And that's the rub. They don't care about the person that they're in a relationship with. They're only in a relationship to get something out of it. And it's not love, companionship, or respect. It's materialism, consumerism, and debauchery. That's what they're in relationships for. End of story. Let's go to the next one.
Husband is demanding a paternity test for his newborn child, or he won't sign the birth certificate. The wife and new mom gave some backstory on Reddit, sharing that she and her husband both worked hard on their college degrees and are now established in good careers. Her husband came into the relationship with a lot of debt, so she moved him into her house, which she owned, and helped him slowly pay things off. Eventually, the wife secured a better paying job, but it was a physically demanding job that required travel. And you can probably see where this is going. The woman became pregnant, and when she was 8 months pregnant, her husband demanded a paternity test out of nowhere. He said he trusted her, but because she traveled so much for work, he needed the assurance for his peace of mind. Apparently, his family and friends said he couldn't be sure about the pregnancy since his wife had spent so much time away. This request understandably upset his wife, so he dropped it. But 3 months after their son was born, he brought it up again, and this time he put his foot down, insisting he wouldn't put his name on their son's birth certificate without a paternity test. Too late, bud. That paperwork was filled out at the hospital. When he found out, it infuriated him. Now his family and friends are calling the new mom, pressuring her to let him do the paternity test. She says it's a slap in the face after all she's done for him. Research shows that without trust, relationships suffer, and this dad is definitely lacking trust. Once trust is lost in a relationship, it's very hard to recover, and this wife has assured her husband many times that their son belongs to him and that she's been faithful. But he's choosing to take the words of his friends and family over his wife, and if he can't trust his wife, the future of their relationship might not be secure. And she shouldn't have to submit herself to a paternity test when she's given her husband no reason to doubt her loyalty.
Because I said it.
Such a disingenuous story. This is why paternity tests should be mandatory at birth. DNA testing should be an automatic thing. All that whole story she concocted was filled and jumbled up with a whole bunch of things that really weren't relevant to the actual core of the story, the paternity test, right? The only part to me that was relevant or germane was the fact that his wife had a job that caused her to travel a lot and to be away from home. That's the only part of her ramblings to me that were actually germane to the dialogue of why her husband wanted the paternity test. If the husband had reason to suspect, which he did, you glossed over that and said he didn't, but he actually did. She was actually away from home quite a bit and became pregnant. So that man clearly had suspicion. Because you don't feel it was justified means absolutely nothing, because you're not in that relationship, ma'am. And that husband, if he suspected something, clearly he did, which is why he wants the DNA test. Now, his wife has every right to be upset by it, but not really, because if they've had discussions prior to her becoming pregnant of infidelity, issues of infidelity, then she is aware of the fact that this man would have an issue with the actual paternity of their child. See, you're telling one side of the story. You're trying to paint the woman as an innocent victim when clearly there are things going on that dictates to us all who are listening to this story with clarity and with an unbiased approach and good faith that there is something else going on in the relationship for this man to suspect that. Because husbands just don't suspect infidelity of their wives if there isn't reason. And see, you want us all to believe that this man is crazy and he's just coming up with something out of the blue. That doesn't make sense. There's reasons that this man has questions of her fidelity and you just don't like it. This is why I say at the end of the day, DNA paternity test should be mandatory at birth. No man should sign any birth certificate without the proof that that child is 100% his. Go to the next one.
I hate when I bring up a guy I have a crush on and people immediately start telling me that I should try to use him for his money. Like, do you hear yourselves? This has got to be, and is, definitely a product of the thinly veiled escort game that's being touted as dating advice on the internet these days. Because why would I treat someone I actually respect and see romantically as if they are a pig or a John? Do y'all hear yourselves genuinely? Like, you fucking mongrels need a job and a muzzle, because that should not be the first thing your mind jumps to when someone tells you that they have a crush on a man, or that they like a man, or that they started going on a date with a man or whatever. You should not immediately be like, oh, take his fucking money, get that back. Silence. Relationships are about love. That's the whole point of them. If you can't pay your own bills, you can just say that, but don't make that something that's like dating is not a universal ticket to a better tax bracket. At least from where I'm sitting. Maybe for everybody else that's what that is, but I pursue relationships with people for platonic and romantic reasons, not financial reasons. And so y'all be getting on my motherfucking last nerve when you're like, oh wow, Shatise, you have a crush on a guy? You should fucking try to see how much money you can get out of him. I actually wanted to know what his hobbies were, but okay, sure.
That's because you're sane. That's because you're not dysfunctional. That's because you're not living and thriving in trauma. You don't see relationships as transactional. See, you're old school. And by the way, those are some nice tats she has there. But back to the subject. You're old school. You see relationships for what they should be. Companionship, love, honor, respect. And a lot of people nowadays just see relationships as a step up to enter into a different tax bracket. They're viewing relationships through the eyes of consumerism and materialism. And that's just all it is to it. And you're right. A lot of these ex-workers online that disguise themselves as relationship coaches or finesse coaches, that's exactly what they are. The Shira Sevens, they're escorts trying to sell you a product of P-work under the guise of getting a leg up in a relationship. When it's just the same old thing that's been going on through time immemorial. The oldest profession in the world. That's what they're doing. And they see relationships as a way of bargaining to get a life that they cannot afford themselves. These people are broke. They're dysfunctional. They're traumatized. They are people who should never be in a relationship with anyone because they clearly need therapy. And when you hear people tell you, what does he do? What kind of money he has? What type of things he has? What kind of lifestyle he can, give you? What type of trips he can take you on? These people are coming from a transactional standpoint. These people are going to always self-sabotage any relationship they get in because they don't view relationships as what they are, companionship. They view them as a means to an end. And as long as women and men, whoever, I don't care who you are, always view relationships as transactional, you're going to get transactional outcomes, and you're going to get on social media, you're going to whine, you're going to moan, and you're going to say there's no good man, no good men, no good women, people are toxic, this back and forth, this gender war that people constantly have on social media because you all are degenerates. The ones that get on social media with the back and forths. You're degenerates. You don't see people as human beings. You see them as currency. You see them as a means to gain materialism, consumerism, and lifestyles you simply cannot afford. That's all I got, man. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Get it cracking in the comments. I'll catch y'all in the credits. 2 fingers. Peace. I'm out. See y'all in the next one.
Like Jesus.